number of studies and are now ready to make our announcement of the results of 12th graders in America and their academic preparedness. We're here at Revere High School because Revere High School and, frankly, the Revere Public Schools are a great example of what can happen when everyone pulls together, focuses on the data, focuses on student engagement. And I'm just delighted to be here. Before I introduce my good friend and colleague, Superintendent Dakin, I do want to introduce the board members from NAEP that are here and have joined us. We'll begin with Father Joe O'Keefe, who's the Dean of the School of Education, the Lynch School of Education at Boston College. And we learned the grandson of a former principal here at Revere High School, Bob O'Keefe. So welcome. Rebecca Gagnon, who is on the board as a representative of parents and is on the Minneapolis Board of Education. Lou Fabrizio from the great state of North Carolina, who's the testing director, kind of the MCAS guy, although they use a different test. Pleased to have you. Tanya Miles from Maryland, who is a general public member of our board, but has been very active in parent engagement and works on a commission in the great state of Maryland. Hector Ibarra, who is our 8th grade science teacher, represents teachers. He is from Iowa. And Dale Nowlin, who's the 12th grade math teacher from Indiana, representing, again, teachers. Did I miss anybody? Good. Okay. Revere High School is a high school that has not your typical demographics for a school that is achieved level 1 here in Massachusetts, which is the top level. So Revere High School is in the same level with Wellesley High School and Andover High School and name your favorite, Weston High School. And so it's a great story. And but the whole Revere Public Schools is a great story. They only have one school that's below level 2, and that's in level 3. So a lot of great things are happening in Revere, and I'm pleased to introduce my former colleague and friend. Paul Dakin has done a tremendous job here as superintendent of schools in the Revere Public Schools. That's not just my opinion. That was the opinion of the superintendents in Massachusetts that named him Superintendent of the Year last year. And he was president of the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents. So my pleasure to introduce Paul Dakin.
Thank you, Dr. Driscoll. Thank you. What it takes to have success in school. Commissioner, welcome.
Hi, Paul. Superintendent, how are you?
Good.
David?
Thinking of the successes that Revere Public School has had over the past years is purely a function of education reform and the initiatives that began in the state in 1993. At that time, the then superintendent took education reform and restructuring of schools seriously. I had the advantage of coming into this world from the private school education world where I worked for 19 years, right at that same time, as an administrator in the district and moved through the ranks. The common philosophy in the district has been that in order to stay abreast of those components in education that are most beneficial for our students is to stay on top of the research and to constantly be reinventing what we're doing. And over the years, we've worked to stimulate a culture of risk and staying on top of the current research so that we could embed those practices into our students. Our moral imperative exists, and whenever we're struggling with a concept, the moral imperative that we ask ourselves is what is best for kids. And behind that moral imperative, our driving mission which is around our 4 R's in Revere. Rigor in the curriculum, relevance to the curriculum, relationships with teachers and students, students to students, teachers and administrators, teachers to teachers, etc., and resilience. Because to do this work, we have to reaffirm our own resilience working with urban children, and our children need resilience. Revere is a community adjacent, just north of Boston. We serve about 7,100 students. Our poverty level is just under 80%. The minority is the majority. And the successes are due to teachers that have bought into the mission of restructuring ourselves continually. And Dr. Garcia will be able to speak specifically to those issues and the teachers and the students at the high school. But it's a realization that in order to honor our moral imperatives through our 4 R's, what we need to continually do is to, and the best we can do to service our children and close achievement gaps, is to constantly be renewing ourselves and our practices. So reconstruction, reformation of what we do is constantly visited. And I think those are reasons why, in addition to believing that the system is comprehensive, changing one part of the system. And when we talk about these test results, we want to change a part of the system, which is the high school programming. It needs to get more rigorous so that students are moving on more prepared. We have to realize nationally that we have to step down that effort all the way. And I think the realization is coming more and more clear that early learning is the place where effort has to be spent, readying students at birth for the rigors that we want them to experience through the continuum of education. So children, and especially children we serve, children of poverty, we're constantly trying to reach out to think of ways to enrich what they're doing in the home before they walk to our door. If we can advance children's literacy by having programs in place where we don't have them in our building, and if we can help parents embrace things that they can do in the home, sharing literacy, sharing books, more books in the home, take a bag of books home with your kindergarten and early learners. The more we can stimulate learning in those early years before we even get them, that is a gap closer, and we have to realize that, because when they come to our kindergartens and first grade readied more, then just as we want to improve high school students, they're readied more. The success here at Revere High School is because of a system that was put in place. About 13 years ago, 12 years ago, we went to full-day kindergarten. Those students are the ones that are testing now at the high school. So one of the reasons why we have seen a blip at the high school level is because that embedded program early on in kindergarten, when they went full day, all of a sudden teachers in the first year, they were sort of stymied by the readiness of those kids as compared to a half-day kindergarten program that we had. So all of a sudden, they started to have the ability to accelerate their programs. We want to continue that and bring it down to the early learning stages. And that will certainly, in a generation of students, which is in our schools 12 or 13, 14 years, if we really go to early childhood education, as we embed more concrete programs and more rigor into the early learning programs, as they move through the stages, which they did here in Revere 7 years ago, after the full-day kindergarten, we saw the need to put in a pre-AP program, pre-advanced placement program in the middle school level. And those are the kids now that are testing at the high school for the first time. So the continuum has always been strategically built through the spectrum of early learning through grade 12 that can compound itself. And in order to get us to the point where we're reaching the targets of a video that you will soon see and having those numbers improve, we can't only think of what we have to do in high school. There's not a level that is immune from assuming a responsibility to increase the rigor. In Revere, we would call it increasing our 4 R's, rigor, relevance, relationships, and resilience, all the way through early learning before we even have children in school. And I know the state and folks at the federal level are looking completely into early learning programs. And as that generation of learners moves through the system, if we all embed in it the deeper practices of the 4 R's and the understanding that this will lead to ultimately a better place for students being prepared for college, we will have done what we are called to do as leaders in the profession.
You're going to introduce the principal.
Okay, continuing on to our program, Dr. Garcia came to Revere Public Schools via Brockton Public Schools originally, and then he had a short stay in Rhode Island, then learned that Massachusetts really is the place to be. And especially Revere is the place to be. Actually, he started off in Cabo Verde and spent some time across the world educating folks. So we're fortunate to have somebody that strategically built on what we were doing at Revere High School and embedded some programs that we were ready for that had to be foundationed by the previous principal, and took it to another place. So I could tell you that Dr. Garcia could deliver this little talk he's going to do in one of 7 different languages. And we'll ask him to stick to English this time, but he's certainly a man of many tongues and would be able to do that. So, Doc, it's your show to let us know what you saw in Revere.
First, let me begin by saying that I'm humbled by the fact that NAEP is here today with us at Revere High School. But also, I would like to recognize the presence of former Commissioner of Education, David Driscoll, whom I had the privilege of meeting in Brockton about 10 years ago. And I would like also to welcome Commissioner Chestnut to Revere High School. And thank you all for attending this wonderful event. I'd like to start my remarks by saying that when we talk about the progress that we see in Revere Public Schools, I would say that this is a district of excellence, academic excellence, where each student's needs are met holistically. What's an emotional, socioeconomic, all kinds of issues that kids bring to school are meaningfully met in the school. So when I came on board in 2010, I had a difficult task of changing the school so that we could meet the accreditation standards. And with a team of established and highly educated teachers, we took upon ourselves the responsibility of restructuring the school. We used to have 7 periods a day. We realized that we needed 4. We realized also that kids needed more time to spend with teachers, doing advisory, to build relationships. We also, I just saw the video that we are going to see very soon, talks about preparing kids for college and career. And the way to do this, we realized that the best way to do this was to build a freshman academy, to build those skills that kids are missing from lower grade levels. So we saw all those things coming, and we decided to put a team together to address those needs. And I'm glad to say that that was not the only structure that changed the pedagogy and the acquisition of learning in school. We built on what was already here. Revere has been the vanguard of academic excellence, and we built on that. So after 3 years, we are seeing significant progress. We are actually above the state average in all categories: ELA, math, science. Imagine yourself in a school where you have 47% of Latinos / Hispanic kids with that come from their native countries with some gaps in education. You have also African Americans, Asians, and you actually the minority. Dr. Dakin is right about pointing out that the minority basically surpassing the majority. That used to be the majority, white kids. So this is a pluralistic school with kids from a variety of latitudes around the world, but with a team of teachers that is extremely dedicated. We were able to turn things around and make Revere High School one of the top urban schools in the nation, and I would say the best in Massachusetts. So Revere High School has moved from level 3 to level 1. We are about to receive the National NCAS Award, which is we have already secured the silver, and we're about to receive the gold. And we have been nominated as one of the top nations by the U.S. News, and we have been granted the silver medal. These achievements speak loudly and very clearly about that success. And it takes the whole village to educate a child. I myself, I cannot do it. You go into the literature, you will see that you'll find a lot of research out there, Marzano, Mike Fullen, and many others that talks about 3 things that have to happen in school for a school to move forward. One is a strong leadership. You have to have a team around you that is fully dedicated to the type of work and commitment that we have here at Revere Public Schools. Second, actually the first would be the highly qualified teaching. You have to have that team that has the best interest of the kids, best interest, putting the best interest at the center of everything. So highly committed teaching force you have to have. You have to have parents also supporting you. So with those 3 conditions, and you have to have another element which is critical in my view, you have to have a strong alignment between central office schools and middle school, elementary, middle school, and high school. Those elements, if they are in place, there's nothing that you cannot achieve. Whether you are in an urban district, suburban, regional, it doesn't matter. You'll be able to achieve those goals. If you look at the data, you can clearly see that the trend of Revere High School is one that many schools around the nation would envy, to be honest with you. So it's a great privilege to work with all these highly dedicated teachers. As a principal, when I see results coming along, it gives me a sense of joy, not because of the data itself, but because of the fact that we are making sure that the job that parents have entrusted us with, which is basically delivering a rigor curriculum to our students, making sure they are receiving a meaningful education, making sure they are here every day, making sure they are not dropping out, making sure we're increasing our graduation rate to make sure kids have the skills and knowledge that will allow them to do great things out there, whether at the college level or the work development. I think those are the critical things. That's a mission I have as a public servant. And it gives me a great honor to work with Dr. Dakin and his team since I got here, the directors, the teachers, my vice principals, the parents, and it gives me a great sense of honor to be here and accomplish the things that I have accomplished. Thank you very much.
You can applaud. So if we have a lull, we'll just have him talk in 7 languages. Before we show the video and shift to why we're here, although we're really here to also honor Revere High School and Revere Public Schools, A couple of people in the audience that have joined us that I want to acknowledge. First of all, of course, my colleague and friend Mitchell Chester, Commissioner Mitchell Chester, will introduce formally in a few minutes. Delighted to have you. I noticed, and Paul, I know you'd be pleased that I noticed this. The key person in this city, with all due respect, and that's Mayor Dan Rizzo. We're delighted to have you join us. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for all you do for schools. NAEP, the National Assessment Governing Board, get used to this alphabet soup. We work closely with NCES, the National Center for Educational Statistics, and they are the ones, we make this pronouncement like NAEP did back in 2003, that we want to do preparedness, and then they have to go do 30 studies. But we're delighted to have Peggy Carr here, who's the assistant, whatever that she is. She runs the place, that's all. And somebody I'm not even sure my NAEP colleagues know, Joe Esposito is here from, he's a businessman here in Massachusetts, and he has been on the businessman's task force for NAEP and just a very big supporter of public education in Massachusetts and NAEP. So Joe, great to have you. Thank you. So now we're going to show the video, right? See, I'm on schedule. They worry. So this is less than 2 minutes. I think I can see it.
As far as academically, I do believe I'm prepared. I will adapt very quickly because it's going to be something that I'm going to be doing for the next 4 years. I'll get used to it and I'll achieve.
There's a lot thrown at you in high school, so not everything sticks. So there's definitely a lot of time my freshman year, especially when I really had to dig a little deeper and do a lot of review.
I think they believe that they are prepared as far as they're able to. I do not believe they have enough exposure to college and what a classroom will look like.
I felt pretty confident coming into college, but I did find that in some of my courses, especially on the math side, there were some things that I wish I would have focused more on in high school. To hear that numbers or percentages of students being prepared for entry-level English and math courses in college is so low, it's pretty shocking.
I wouldn't say specifically surprised. I would say more it angers me because America isn't the same academic country that it used to be 20 to 30 years ago.
It's staggering if you have to repeat and do work over and students don't come prepared.
It doesn't surprise me, mostly because we don't test for content mastery.
We have talked to the deans of many of these schools, and we look at their curriculum and what they're actually offering. And we try to align what we're doing here with what's happening on the college level.
The percent of students that may have to take remedial classes that's a shocking, because you learn throughout your whole year of 12th grade, 11th grade, 10th grade, and 9th grade to prepare for college.
In my intro math course that I took my freshman year, I expected there to be a little bit more remediation in the beginning of the course so that we would get up to speed with where our professor wanted to be.
The number is alarming. So that means then that we need to do something again on the elementary level, on the middle school level, and in the high school level. Because by the time they get to high school, if they're not academically prepared, it's a real struggle.
Okay, so make a few general remarks, and then I want to turn it over to Mitchell for some of his reaction. Then we're just going to have a discussion and actually open it up to you as well. Again, just a reminder as context, it was back in 2003 that the National Assessment Governing Board said specifically that we wanted to change our framework and start looking at preparedness. Actually, it was college and career preparedness. And quite frankly, the studies we've done in the career area have not been clear yet. There's not a clear response. A lot more work needs to be done. Now, part of that is because of the great variety of academic skills needed in various careers. So it was a lot harder to examine that than it was college readiness. In the area of college preparedness, and we use the word preparedness, I just use readiness. We use the word preparedness because we think we can measure what academic preparedness looks like. Whether a kid's ready or not, Logan, I don't know if you're ready. I know she's prepared. So that was the decision made back in 2003. And then through a series of studies, looking at NAEP and SAT, looking at NAEP and ACT, looking at AccuPlacer and NAEP, looking at some content alignment, looking actually at colleges and what across the country and what was being required of freshmen in both the area of reading and mathematics, looking at this whole issue of remediation, which I know Mitchell wants to talk about, and AccuPlacer. We conducted 30 studies, and we still have more work to do. And one thing you learn when you're in NAGB, nothing's ever done. You know, I thought it was done, but there's always work to be done. But clearly there's an indication after all of these studies that there is a place on the NAEP scale that would suggest that kids are academically prepared or not. And you saw it in the video. Slightly less than 4 out of 10 kids in mathematics and reading are academically prepared for college based on our study. And that's what we're announcing today. And again, we are the only ones that test a representative group of 12th graders in the country. Everyone else, SAT, ACT, it's a particular population. So we're the only ones that do a sample of kids in America. And as you know, we are the gold standard in the nation's report card. So this does tell you the state of affairs for 12th graders as they enter the next level. I want to make one other note, and that is that we're testing 12th graders, which means we're not testing dropouts. So you need to factor in the dropouts, and in particular in a lot of urban areas, a very high dropout rate. In some instances, more than 50% of the kids in the high school. So it's a much different, it's not, we've got a lot of work to do, let's put it that way. And we're fortunate to be here in Revere, and we'll talk about some of the success and why they think they've had the success here. And we're very fortunate in Massachusetts. The president is coming on June 11th to a high school graduation, vocational high school in Worcester, brand new school, similar to Revere. They've turned the place completely around, high percentages of kids going on to four-year colleges, etc., in a school that had struggled. And so he's actually going to be a graduation speaker at a high school in Massachusetts. So there's a lot to be proud of. I kept hoping things would go south after I left. Would have made me look better, you know what I mean? I say, well, it was a big deal. Mitchell's doing what you did. I mean, it was a big deal. Anyway, I'm pleased to welcome my colleague and friend, Mitchell Chester, who has done just a great job here and continued, and has had a lot of challenges with Race to the Top and teacher evaluation issues here, and going to a new generation of assessments, which I fully support, by the way, and he's getting clubbed for, so I'm glad to take some arrows in that regard. I think it is time. They kill me on MCAS. Now everybody is talking about how wonderful MCAS is. Where were they when we developed it? It sounds like the Bible. But anyway, Mitchell has a long history as an educator, a principal, curriculum developer in Connecticut, in Philadelphia, and in Ohio, doing accountability in Ohio before he came to Massachusetts. So I begin just by asking you your take on this, and I know we're an outlier school, but how does this hit you, the fact that basically less than 40% of our kids are prepared?
Yeah, well, first of all, my apologies for being late, but
You were
I'm
working,
pleased.
right?
I was.
Yeah, okay,
I was.
that's all.
I was at a legislative hearing. I'm very pleased to be here. And the accompanying part of the story about you hoping to see the results go downhill. This is indicative of how powerful NAEP is as a key statistic. I got appointed early in 2008 to this position, and I was hoping that the final NAEP results before I arrived would take a big dive. So that it's a very,
with all due respect to the kids.
That's right. That's right. I mean, it's a very different challenge to follow in David's footsteps than it would have been to follow in 49 other commissioners' footsteps. You did a phenomenal job, and get the credit for really shepherding a statewide system to the kinds of results that are happening in Massachusetts. And I'm sitting next to it, and this is I would say this. Anywhere except in front of other superintendents in Massachusetts. But Superintendent Dakin, Paul Dakin, is probably the most can-do, inventive, keep looking for ways forward, ways to never be satisfied superintendent probably in the nation. I mean, I've visited probably half dozen times in my tenure in schools with you here in Revere, and just tremendous from preschool all the way up through high school. So it's the real deal. It really is the real deal. Very diverse and challenging, a kind of population that if all you saw were the numbers, you wouldn't predict the kind of performance that Revere's getting. And so my kudos to the mayor and to other officials here and educators from Revere, but Paul gets a tremendous amount of credit for that. So what do you do with the top performing state in the nation, right? I mean, what do you do? Paul knows I've pushed hard not to be content with where we are, to look for the opportunities to improve, right? We all have ways to improve where none of us is doing the best that we can do. I think to a large degree, Paul and his colleagues have questioned whether I've pushed too hard or too fast on this agenda. But part of what I'm looking at is, are we doing a good job of preparing young people for the world after high school, what employers expect, what higher ed expects, and for citizenship? And despite the very successful track record, and it's a very real track record in Massachusetts, the fact of the matter is that of our high school graduates from our public high schools, and as Dave said with the NAEP, this does not include dropouts, right? Of our high school graduates who matriculate in our public campuses in Massachusetts, almost 40% of them require remediation. Now that's pretty astounding, and it's troubling in particular because when you disaggregate that, so that by four-year campuses, UMass, four-year campuses, two-year campuses, very different, right? At the four-year campuses, it's a much lower rate. They're more selective about admissions. At the two-year campuses, where we have open admission, and where the bulk of our low-income students go to higher ed when they go to higher ed, that rate of remediation is 2/3, 2 out of 3 are placed in at least one remedial course, and I suspect everybody in this room knows the consequences of that. They're devastating. And so we've been looking at what are the implications for the program of study all the way up into high school. Does this sound okay? I'm getting kind of a feedback. Okay. What are the implications for the program of study as we move up through the grades? And then in particular in our high school level, because one of the things that I've noticed on our own testing program, which Most folks would say, and I've got Lou here who will keep me honest on this, most would say that Massachusetts state testing program is second to none in terms of the quality and the demand in terms of the rigor. And I think there's a lot of data to bear that out. But nonetheless, at the high school level, our 10th grade test, which is a graduation requirement, the standards that we've set on that, I would argue, are nowhere near as aspirational as they are on our assessments up through 8th grade. And one of the illustrations, one of the examples of that is that on our state tests, this is our statewide results, 80 to 90% of students, first time they take the test in their sophomore year, are scoring proficient or higher in both math and in reading. Now, if you look at our 12th grade NAEP results, that's probably about 40 points lower in terms of the proficiency rate on NAEP's proficiency standard. If you look at Massachusetts tests in 4th and 8th grade, and the standards we've set and the proficiency rates, they're pretty comparable to NAEP in 4th and 8th grade. Pretty comparable, right? So top performing state in the nation, in our middle grade math, the standard we've set, about half of the kids are hitting the bar. About half of the kids. We've set a very high standards and very comparable to NAEP. But at the high school level, I'm concerned that we're not giving kids very clear information about what they are and aren't ready for. So of those 40% of students who graduate from our high schools, enroll in college, get placed in a remedial class, my guess is most of them did not expect that. Most of them did what we asked them to do to get a high school diploma. They passed the 10th grade test, they met their curriculum requirements, they got a high school diploma, they got accepted to a college. They show up and they need remediation. So that's an area that I'm very much focused on. It's one of the reasons that Massachusetts is participating in the PARCC assessment, one of the two state consortia of assessments. My best guess is that Massachusetts students will do pretty well on those assessments up through 8th grade because we set such a rigorous bar on our own state tests up through 8th grade. My guess is it'll be a pretty substantial wake-up call for Massachusetts when we start to see the results on the high school tests in PARCC, because PARCC is designed to measure up through 11th grade. That's one major distinction. And it's designed to measure whether or not students are academically prepared, have the academic preparation for what colleges expect of them. I'm really pleased, Dave, that NADB and NCES took on the studies that you described in trying to better understand how we can think about NAEP as a barometer of college readiness and the score levels. And that's a great service. So I'm pleased to be here and pleased to join you.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you very much. So very pleased to be joined by two Revere-ites, true Revere-ites, by the way. To my left is John DeMarco, who is not only a teacher here at Revere High School, but was a student here at Revere High School. And next to him is a senior, Logan DiCarlo, who is going on to UMass Amherst in their honors program. And she is a student that's gone through her entire career in the Revere Public Schools. So let me start by asking the sort of a positive question of both of you. I'll start with John, and then Logan can chip in. What have you seen in Revere, in your case, Revere High School, John, that's different, and some of the reasons you think that you're doing so much better than you had been and doing so much better than your colleagues in terms of demographics?
Yeah, thanks. I know Dr. Garcia talked a lot about the structure changes that we made to the school. Some of them driven by accreditation. He talked about the block schedule and having an advisory period, which goes with Dr. Dakin with building relationships in the school. And I think that's really important in an urban school district. It's important in any school district. It's one of the things I remember about Revere High School as a student was the relationships I built with teachers, and that was really helpful. One other thing that we're currently doing is the use of technology, and I think technology has made a huge difference at Revere High School the last couple of years. Just teaching students how to use technology appropriately and to use it as a tool in the classroom. We provided them with iPads, but we didn't just, here, figure out for yourself what you're going to do with those. Dr. Garcia has spent, a lot of time sending us to professional development to learn how to use iPads as a tool in the classroom. One of the things we're doing here at Revere High School now is called flipped learning, where lessons are student-centered, and it really forces students to take accountability. And to go back to Dr. Dakin with the R's, and we really do believe in those, and that makes for rigorous lessons. We're asking students to take that accountability and to work in groups in the classroom, to complete lessons, less direct instruction in the classroom. We send that home now. We can send readings home. We can send videos home on the iPads. But one of the biggest things has been the time for student-centered lessons in the classroom. That would not have been possible without the other structures that were put in place. We need that 80-minute block schedule. We're fortunate to have that because now we have time for those activities in the classroom. On a side from that, the advisory time to build relationships with the students has been really huge too. So all the structures, but I think the biggest one that is, coming down the pipeline now is the flipped learning. And, I feel fortunate to work here and to have been a student here, and I'm excited about the flipped learning initiative as well.
Great. Thank you for that. I wanted to ask probably Lorenzo and Paul as much as you, but is there, from your perspective, and because you're in history, social science, I think it would be more in reading and math, but is there more of a focus on the test results and actually using the results, do you think, Paul and Lorenzo and John, than they used to be? I mean, you're taking advantage of, right now, the MCAS results, which are individual, etc.
Yeah, definitely. One of the big initiatives we've had the last couple of years has been with writing. So we've looked at those tests, and especially the English test, but all the MCAS tests. I know with the Park exam coming down the line as well, they require students to be literate and obviously be able to read and write at a high level. So we've really made an effort to focus on content literacy. Not before it was English and history, you would do some writing. Now it's all the content areas, and we focused in history on creating common writing prompts and document-based questions, and each US 1, US 2, world history, we all have those, and I know the other content areas are doing that as well. So we're trying to stay ahead of the curve with that, and our director, Christina Porter, has really done a good job pushing us forward and keeping us ahead of the curve and with all the writing that's required on the exams.
Great, thank you. So although it's a little unfair because you just go through yourself, so you only have your own experience in 4 years, but is there something you from your perspective that you think Revere High School does, and your experience here was better than you know from friends in other cities or whatever? Describe the things that you think have been helpful here with Revere High School.
Well, when I talk about Revere High School, I really don't like this microphone, but I could talk about it for days. I promise you they didn't brainwash me and tell me to say all these good things. I just truly, genuinely like Revere High School and the opportunities that they hold for us. When I talk to Peabody High School from sports or other student athletes, they're like, "You have iPads? That's crazy." And they're just jealous, and they wish they could have the kind of opportunities.
Thank you, Mr.
The kind of opportunities that we have. I would really like to reiterate the fact that the technology that we've received is definitely going to propel us to the next level and make us ready for college, because in 20 years, everything is going to be technology-based, and we probably won't be able to even have conversations with people. It'll be online. So our school is definitely an outlier, as you said, and I believe that we are an outlier because of the community that Revere holds. And as we were talking about the freshman academy, there is a sense of community built. People are seniors who are ahead of the game would take time out of their day to tutor students who are a little behind in math and different things. And we also have this really important group called the School Improvement Team, and that is where students, administrators, teachers, school committee members, you name it, all come together once a month, and we talk about the problems in Revere High, and we talk about what we can improve. And I have definitely seen improvements where we have implemented and we've talked about at these community meetings, and it really helps our community as a whole. And what I would like to say is that the dedication in this school is outstanding. From the guidance counselors, from the administrators, from the teachers. I have a calculus teacher who stays until 7 o'clock at night, every single night, for trying to help students who need the help, students who just need the extra lift to get an A on the next test. And my guidance counselor will stay hours upon hours helping me with different things, and it just it really is a key to having a successful community as a whole. And again, I would really like to reiterate the fact about technology and the iPads, and it's fantastic, the opportunities that we have in the school, such as the AP courses that are offered. And where one instance that I would really like to point out is there's this girl who's really interested in music and music technology. And we didn't have a course specifically for AP music, but our guidance counselors and our administration made it possible for her to take a AP course online and study what she was very interested in. So that's what I would really like to say.
So Logan, tell me again why you don't do well with a microphone.
I've never heard my voice.
You stole the show, for crying out loud. I'm staged this off. That was great, thank you, and from the heart, and very good. So we're going to open up for questions, and this is a hard one to ask. I'll just throw it out, and I know it'd be great if somebody had an answer, but having just come back from China, where kids go at high school level, where many of them go from 8 o'clock in the morning until 9 at night, by the way. And they all speak English, which is incredible, a terrible language to learn, and they speak Chinese. It reminds you of this global world that our kids are going to face, and the competition they're frankly going to face economically and so on. So we see statistics like this, and we know Revere is an outlier, but still, not 100% of your kids are going on. And as Mitchell points out, there's still too many kids needing mediation. So the question is, and something I think the board really talks about, what can we do to get people to understand, particularly parents? I think the business community kind of gets it more than anybody, but everyone else is sleeping through it. And so I guess the question would be, how do we get people excited? We give this is another set of statistics. You do statistics all the time, and people sleep through it. So does anybody have a bright idea how to get people off their duffs? To use a technical term. You like that, Rebecca? Tell the Minnesota board.
I had one area I think Doc talked about educating the whole child, and I think one area that we fall short of and we don't give enough credence to is for college, career, and civics readiness. And the civics readiness, by that I mean how we live in this world together and how we as a people can provision the foundations of what we do such that during a student's tenure in the public school system, they're learning not only the content material for what they need to learn for a college and career, but they're utilizing that content material and stretching the thinking to how they can really live in a community of learners locally and nationally by engaging a civic component of how we live and work together. And I think when you get that discussion rolling, the content pieces don't take a background, but they puzzle in an area of emotional and social growth that leads and has a capital to expanding why a student would be in school, not only for my own readiness for college, but as a readiness for our community and for our future and how much we need. So I think we have to start thinking even deeper than college and career preparedness. We have to think about civic engagement and how we utilize that and optimize it to puzzle together a more complete child that sees and feels from that civic engagement the necessity to do better for a broader community.
Right. I'm going to open up. I'm going to add a little bit to that. I myself, from my perspective of several decades, I do think we've become far too top-down in America. And you're seeing decisions made by states, third grade reading, as if they're going to, what are you going to do if they don't? I mean, it's crazy. And all kinds of mandates. And you're seeing some negativity towards teachers, which I don't understand. And you're being taken away, so forth and so on. And I think as we've become so top-down, we're losing out on this issue of having people at the local level who have to deal with all of these issues. Bullying is a big issue today. It wasn't even on the radar 10 years ago. And so this whole holistic approach, which can only come from the local level, has to be, I think, factored back in. So I worry that we're getting too clinical from a top-down perspective and forgetting the very difficult blocking and tackling that has to happen at the local level. So quite frankly, all of the great work the boards I work for did, and our staff, and what Mitchell has done, his board has done some great things. You know, Revere High School, as well articulated by John and Logan, have just done great work about community and, you know, the 4 R's and so forth. So I think that's a good lesson to us. The 4 R's take place at the local level. You can't mandate.
Dave, a couple of responses there. First of all, I'm surprised on the 4 R's. Now, you took me to task a few months ago for not needing R's.
Yeah, we don't use them. Rigor is R-I-G-A-H. Anyway.
But no, actually, so to follow up your comment, I think there's got to be a balance between local initiative and not becoming too insular. So one thing I do worry about for our nation and the tension between being a nation and being 50 states. And this is playing out around the Common Core, around the assessments, playing out in legislatures. The concern that in the name of don't tell us what to do, we end up shortchanging the students we serve. And I think that NAEP has a very special perch for informing that conversation. And NAEP is just such a powerful, emblematic assessment that people pay attention to. And more I'm seeing the results on NAEP being linked to some of the international results, the PISA, the TIMSS results. Just yesterday, Paul Peterson at Harvard released a new study that was very provocative that drew on the 8th grade NAEP results as a indexed to the PISA results to make some very interesting observations. And I think NAEP has a responsibility to keep the insights that come from the assessments in front of the American people, writ large, as well as state by state. And that to me is very critical.
Thank you. That's helpful. By the way, we probably don't do enough to articulate our relationship there. We actually embed NAEP questions in TIMSS and TIMSS questions in NAEP. And so we really are paying a lot of attention to both PISA, TIMSS, and probably the girls. Okay. They've got a microphone. Logan doesn't need one. We've got a few minutes, although this has been fun, isn't it? See, we make it fun. We like to make it fun. Hector from Iowa.
Good afternoon. Thank you for those comments that you made, Dr. Garcia. They were very enlightening. One of the things I think that in the three that you mentioned, that I would add a fourth one, is the importance of administration.
Right.
Sets the culture, sets the atmosphere. And I've worked under 6 principals and 5 superintendents in my 34 years of teaching. And the ones that set that bar high, you saw the school moving in the direction that it needs to be. And that's what I see in you and Dr. Bacon in terms of what you say. The other thing is, when I talk to my students about winning national projects, there are 2 big things that I address, and that is buy-in and ownership. And I tried to talk to my last superintendent about those aspects, because if you don't have people that are buying into what you're doing in education, they're not going to own it. And if they're not going to own it, they're not going to get any further, because they believe, too many people believe that it's somebody else's problem. Those 40% aren't us. They aren't our school. And they just aren't opening their eyes. And until you get people buying in, there just isn't going to be that other 60% or 59% rising to the position at hand. So thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Any other comments, questions? Hey.
Thank you. I first want to say I enjoyed all of your comments. They were all very enlightening. Just a week ago, this program released the 12th grade results. There were 13 states that participate, which you probably know that very well. And the results were, they lackluster. I mean, they weren't that great. They were flat in comparison to last report on the states that had a trend line. But you know, we looked deep into those data and we saw that there was a significant improvement in the graduation rate over this time period. And we also saw a significant increase, very much like the composition of the school that we described here. There's this trend towards minority students being the majority. And Secretary Duncan just announced recently, when this report was released, that by the fall we project that the public schools will be just that. Yeah. And so you have the Hispanic students over this time period that doubled in the representation in our public schools, our 12th grade grades in particular, and also the white students also declined during this time period. So what would you say to the nation is struggling with these are good, it's sort of a bittersweet. The score is going to be harder to show improvement over time, but yet we are keeping these students in school. That's a good thing. What would you say to the American public?
Well, I really think we have to expand the thinking and the responsibility of education and work often and hard, especially with that immigrant population, for which Revere has a large immigrant population. We are certainly a gateway community, so close to Boston that first-generation immigrants end up settling in Revere. We can't release any of our 4 R's, especially the rigor R, because a child may be an English language learner for a while, or come from a home that really hasn't had the advantage of supplying literacy. So in order to gain an advantage, we have to reach out more and help these populations understand part of the ingredient of success is their understanding of the American education system and how they can help that system by participating in it as a parent and by understanding what they can do at home to help us fill any gaps or accelerate learning as we go on. So I don't think our K-12 project, we've inherited in K-12 lots of things that when I first went to school in the 1950s, we didn't do. We do hot breakfasts, we do hot lunches. We have in this school a Mass General Hospital satellite that is here with folks that can provide services to kids, medically, right here in connection with their primary care physician that is at Mass General. we do lots of things that we didn't do before. In one area, and we've always said it, is engage parents in the community. It's not only engage at this point in time, I don't think, it's educate parents how to parent in an educational system that they might not understand, or because they're from other countries, or they weren't, if they are a Native American and living in poverty, or didn't understand themselves when they were a student and didn't participate in it to the rigor that we would hope that they did. So it's working with those populations will help fill a gap.
You know, I think that's a great question, and I think it's actually kind of hopeful, Peggy, because we are doing a better job of holding on to kids and helping them persist and reach graduation. Our understanding of what it means to be prepared for success after high school, even though a lot of folks have gotten this for a long time, I think it's only now really starting to elevate as a national discussion. And I think, again, NAGBY's doing a great job by contributing to that dialogue. I think the two assessment consortium are really elevating the understanding of that. Education Commission of the States is taking on a project to define a common metric for remediation rates when you get to college. So I think the fact that we're doing better and better in terms of keeping kids in high school gives us the opportunity to elevate the programs that they're experiencing. I think it bodes well. It's certainly an opportunity, right? Yeah.
Well, let me close as chairman of NAGBY supposed to, which is hardly the way I ever operate. Our job is to tell the story and, frankly, tell the truth. And we're supposed to leave it to others to conjecture. But I think it is fair to point out that while there is this concern, when we look at our results with less than 40% being prepared and it doesn't include dropouts. To Peggy's point, we have quite a different population. And if you look at our long-term trend, and when we put in a little commercial for increased budget from NAGBY, we've had to face sequestration, etc. And I think there are some legitimate concerns by people that we could expand. For example, should we be testing writing at the 12th grade level is a very good question. And we're trying to do TAL and some other things. But if you look at long-term trends, some people say we should do away with it because it's old hat, so to speak. But it is interesting to note that the minority students, Black and Hispanic students, are scoring where whites did 20 years ago. So we have this very strange, it's called Simpsons, by the way, I used to be a math teacher. My last lesson, the Simpsons paradox, where every subgroup is growing, but the overall doesn't grow. That's hard to, so everybody's doing better, but the overall is not as good. And that's because of the mix. While everyone's doing better, the number of white students who are our highest achievers the number has gone down. The achievement's gone up, but their number's gone down. So the impact of Black and Hispanics is greater. So the overall, so we say, well, it's flat. Well, it's flat, but our Blacks and Hispanics, which is our future, by the way, if you haven't noticed, Asians, are doing better. So I do think that we would hope, we put the numbers out that we would see more robust discussions about, and more meaningful discussion about what does this all mean and what does it mean for people in the schools. Fortunately, here in Revere, they figured it out. And again, I want to give you great credit. This has been a great day, and now you know why I chose this place. This has always been a great place. So, very pleased to be here. Thank you for all your kind attention, and you are dismissed.
Hey, that's great. Thank you for kind words.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Great job, Logan.
Sorry.